Welcome to the DNA show.
DNA? Dude, are we doing a science show?
No, D is for Dennis.
Oh, A is for Andy.
And N is for and?
Oh, man, nerds. Because we're
yeah.
nerds, dude.
Yeah. Well, good. Then we can talk about comics and movies and pop culture and sports.
Sports and nerds. Yeah, we're going to make that work.
All right, let's roll.
All right, welcome back to the Dennis and Andy Show. I'm Andy with my buddy.
And this is Dennis. Welcome back.
I believe on the agenda, shall we say, this week we're going to be talking about Gotham by Gaslight, which was a DC Elseworlds graphic novel first, which...
Actually, I believe it was they didn't call it at the time, but I think it was the first Elseworlds graphic novel.
Really?
Yes, because I remember, that's why I don't think they called it an Elseworlds at the time, because I had just graduated high school, went off to college, and that's when it came out. I'm like, well, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, because it came out back in late 80s?
89, I believe.
89, yeah. So it came out 31 years ago.
Yeah.
Wait, is that right? Is my math right?
89, 31.
31 years ago. And in 2018, the animated movie of it came out. Now, I have not seen the animated movie, but Dennis has. So that means we can talk about it.
Yep. Besides, after seeing, Red Sun and doing a review from one of our previous ones, it's another good Elseworld, so it just felt like natural we should talk about it.
Now, I will say I haven't read the graphic novel, and I want to use a different term, actually, because graphic novel to me, I think when people hear that, they think of something that's at least 100 pages or more, and this was basically, it was a standalone one-shot.
A one-shot is what I would
It's what they called
it.
square-bound, which means it wasn't stapled, the book. It was, square-bound glue, like a book, but I think it's only like 48 pages.
Yeah.
It was a really good book. It was written by Brian Augustyn. It was drawn by Mike Mignola. You'll know his name from Hellboy, the creator of Hellboy. This was before Hellboy when this book came out. Does it say who inked it? Because I don't think Mike inked it.
Craig Russell.
Craig Russell inked it, and he is a phenomenal artist in his own right. So you have a very good writer. And Brian used to be an editor at DC as well. I actually worked with him when he was an editor up there.
And Mark Waid was the editor at that time.
And Mark Waid was the editor on the book at the time. And now, of course, everybody knows who Mark is from so much stuff he's written. First thing that comes to my mind is Captain America. He had a great run on, but he's written tons of stuff, Fantastic Four, whatever. But yeah, Brian Augustyn's the writer. Mike Mignola is the penciler. P. Craig Russell is the inker. I'm going to guess. Let me guess if I get the colors right, Dennis. Steve Olive?
Not listed. And I didn't bring my copy with.
No, my copy's in a box, but I'm almost willing to bet it was Steve Olive back then. But anyhow, the whole story centers around Batman in England in the Victorian age.
Yep.
If I remember correctly.
Yep. It was a very unique a setting because it was... I remember seeing it on the shelf and I'm like, what's this? And they're like, oh, it's a story. It's like Marvel's What If.
That's what I was about to say. It was basically, this was DC's version of What If. Yeah.
Yeah. And it picked it up and I'm like, so what's it a what if? Well, what if, Batman had to go up against Jack the Ripper?
Yeah.
Oh. Because I remember going back in that time doing research and stuff on Jack the Ripper. I'm like, well, now I am totally piqued.
Oh, same here.
You had to buy it.
Not to go off on a huge tangent, but Jack the Ripper is just one of those stories that has always fascinated me.
Yep.
I don't think... Here's a question. Do you think he'd be... In this day and age, if some dude tried pulling that crap, he'd be caught with the technology we have? I think so.
Yes,
I don't think he'd get away with it.
I do.
I think he'd be nabbed up. I don't know if it'd be quick, because... Jack, basically killed 4 or 5 women? That was it. I mean, one's too many.
Well, just take a look at, like, Dexter, for all you watch Dexter. All right, so maybe if he worked for the police department.
Maybe if he had a kill room. But, if you're just going up to prostitutes on the street, taking them into a back alley and gutting them and stuff, I'm not thinking you're getting away with it in this day and age.
But I remember when I first read it, I was like, oh, I mean, I was so jacked. But I mean, I'm a 20-year-old, 21-year-old. Right. Came out, I was like, this is really cool. And the story held up. I thought the art was fantastic. The way it was designed, the way that they had Batman, low-tech Batman back in that day trying to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And the story, how it was set up. I mean, I just remember being blown away. And I remember reading it several times over the years, but I hadn't really read it very recently. It wasn't until we were talking about this, I'm like, wow, they did come out with the animator. I need to go back and watch. I'm going to go watch it and then see what I kind of remember off of it. And it was so I'll just say the comic / one shot is completely different than what the animated was. Unlike Red Sun, that had a lot of similarities and were close. This was a almost completely different story.
Really?
Yes.
Now, I'm trying to remember the story. Batman's parents, I assume, in Gotham by Gaslight were killed. Like Batman's origin was pretty much the same. I mean, I assume they weren't coming out of a movie theater. In fact, they weren't. They were out for a nightly ride. I was actually able to find my copy. And, yeah, it looks like they were out for a carriage ride, Bruce Wayne's parents, and that's when they were gunned down. So, they always, when DC does these books, and this wasn't an Elseworlds book, but DC, this was, I think, like Dennis said, their first stab, no pun intended, at doing a book like this in a different world type setting. And then they finally coined the term Elseworlds for when they would do this stuff instead of What If, which was Marvel's way of doing it. And, so Bruce's family's well off. His parents are killed when he's a kid. He grows up, and eventually...
You get introduced to a relative. His name was Jacob Parker.
Right.
That's why... So when we're of the younger age, and you're first reading this, I was thinking, well, this is just great. I remember loving it. And then when you find out who the villain was, who actually is the Jack the Ripper character. And then you sit there and you find out at the end, you're like, oh. And back then I was like, that is really cool. I mean, that makes sense. Oh, of course it's a relative. Oh, I didn't see that coming.
But he's also, because Bruce's dad, was Bruce's dad a doctor?
I don't remember at that time.
I can't remember, but this guy obviously was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was interesting was, like I said, when you find out, you're like, oh, okay, that's actually an interesting ending. As he's trying to track him down and then figure out who it is. And, he's still a detective, and he's going after it. And then you find out, well, as you read it when you're older, you're like, it just doesn't hold the weight that it did when I was younger because so many of the things, are right in front of you. So you get to meet some of the characters, and like the one gentleman, he looks just like Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh, I know, so much.
I mean, literally, they took a picture of Teddy and they dolled him up, and they're like, look, it's Teddy. And it's great because, I mean, anybody reading this was like, there you go.
Wasn't he the commissioner, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's basically Gordon. Commissioner Gordon, yeah.
Yeah. So it was a good story, and I remember, absolutely loving it as a kid. When I reread it later, I didn't like it as well. I still love the artistic style. I still like the story. It's just the surprise ending was literally there the whole time because it really wasn't a surprise if you were paying attention.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, I can't, I read it when it came out. 31 years ago. I don't remember my first reaction to it. I bought it because of Mike Mignola's artwork. Full honesty, being an artist, that's why I buy most of my stuff. Mike's art was perfect for it because of the graphic nature and the darkness that Mike brings to his work, and just his storytelling chops as well. But, I have gone back and read it since then, and I mean, if you read it and you're paying attention, you can pretty much figure it out. But it's still a cool story. But I haven't seen the cartoon. You have, Dennis, so what are we looking at here, divergence-wise? Like, what's the big...
Almost immediately. So
Batman's parents aren't killed?
Well, no, that part is still killed.
Okay.
But there is no Uncle Jacob.
Really?
Yeah, he's not in it at all.
So right out of the gate, you know... Well,
so he's not the bad guy.
He's not the bad guy.
But what they do introduce is, so the animated series starts off by showing Poison Ivy.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
She's a dancer on the stage, and she's the first one to get killed.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're like, wow, that's totally different because she's not in it very much.
Really? And she gets off, huh?
Right away.
Really?
Yes.
And I assume you know it's Poison Ivy because they name drop it. Like
nope, they do not name it, but
just visually you can tell.
It's the Bruce Timm style of art.
Right.
And so anybody who's watched any of the Batman animated, it's the hair, the eyes, it is her, and you already know it. You wind up finding out, about it, but anyway, that's not even. So you see her to start with,
but that's not a bad variation.
No, it's a good. So I'm gonna say, and I'll give you my score on it later. But,
sure.
All of a sudden, then you get introduced to Selina Kyle.
Really.
And she becomes the main character of the story. Now, what's interesting is Selina Kyle is never even in the original one-shot.
That's what I thought.
No, the story centers around her relationship with what she's trying to figure out, and her relationship with Bruce.
Okay.
So, in the show, Bruce Greenwood actually plays Batman, and we all know him from Star Trek because it's Admiral Pike. Or Captain Pike.
Oh, yeah.
And then Jennifer Carpenter is Selina, and she pulls it off. And again, since we're talking Dexter, what an absolute great way, because that's Dexter's sister from the show.
She's a great actress.
She winds up playing Selina Kyle, and they don't call her Catwoman, but it's Selina. Right. So you get introduced to her where she's running down the alley, and you can see she's being chased.
Is there anything in the movie at all that...
Nope.
Nothing with her relating to cats at all? It's just the name Selina?
Well, in Cats, so you will... There are references that she could be a Catwoman. So her clothing kind of is in there. Yeah. You do see some cats that are in there, but there is nothing that drops the name Catwoman or anything relating to it. She gets cornered because she's waiting for Jack the Ripper. So he chases her, and she's ready. And all of a sudden, she's wearing the long dresses that they did from that time. So wait, she's
trying to play vigilante, basically?
Yes.
Really?
All of a sudden, you see her pull up her skirt, and she's got the whip hidden underneath, and she's pulling out the whip, and she's like, whoosh. Well, the Jack the Ripper just like goes through her like pace, and Batman shows up.
But wait, so he kills her, or he just
tries to? No, tries to. Then Batman shows up, and she's like, "I don't need saving," and the two of them like go against him, and this guy like literally beats the crap out of both of them.
Really?
Yes. That's how...
Come on, Batman can't be getting his ass kicked.
So, in Batman, so again, it's an intelligent story because they just don't get their butts kicked, and he's like, well, obviously he's a trained fighter. He knows what he's doing. This isn't a doctor that's just walking around and killing people or a crazy person killing person, because this person is literally on a mission and is fighting. So, They continue on, and then she goes, I don't need your help. And, Batman, his identity is secret and everything like that.
So at this point, the only person that he's killed so far is Poison Ivy?
Yeah, so there's been a second attempt, and, you see newspaper articles that shows that he has killed others and stuff like this. And then Batman shows up, and Batman is wanted by the police because he's like a vigilante. Right. And then Batman shows up at Commissioner Gordon's house. And all of a sudden, his wife was there making food, and he's like, oh, just wait. Goes out there and talks to him, and he goes, hey, I need your files on this Jack the Ripper. And he's like, hey, you don't get to come to my house. This will be the one and only time. He goes, if you need help. And so he basically is going to say, I'll help you this once, but my guys are all after you. The police are after you because you're a bad guy in their mind. And then he
That
turns...
goes off Batman lore. So
it holds true. But he turns around and, of course, Batman's gone.
Of course.
And he has the files. And, it turns out really well. So he winds up, Batman goes to try and hunt him down, and eventually Selina winds up finding out his identity, and he gets injured in the fight and everything like this. And it really was so good because you focus in on her at the club, Harvey Dent's in it, and he's a similar, he's kind of a jerk, and literally a two-faced kind of person.
Right, without ever becoming
Two-Face.
Yeah.
Again, so he's in it, but like him and he has a thing for Selina.
Sure.
And Selina has a thing for Bruce, and he senses it, so he actually turns in Bruce as being Batman, and the police come after him. So again, none of this is in the in the one shot.
So they throw this love triangle into the story,
Right?
Which I don't know. I mean, do you think they did that to expand it, to make it fill a good hour and a half?
No, because
the
story they could have done it, I think they did it to play to today's type of audience.
Get a little
because
romance
they
in
do
there
like that kind of thing because, we have a bigger female audience than what they did.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that how they put this together in the story, I actually prefer it over the original one-shot. And it's not very often you're going to hear me say that because I really enjoyed the original one. But this one is so good in the interaction and the play and the words. Bruce gets sent to prison and everything like this, so he gets caught.
Really? So the funny thing is, it's funny because Dent sets Bruce up, not even knowing he's actually setting up the real Batman.
Right.
He's just...
And then later, I think, finds out. Right. So the big twist comes in this one where she's like, Bruce is in there. I need to get him out. I'm going to go tell Commissioner Gordon his true identity, which means he'll let him out.
Right.
So
because Jack the Ripper's still killing, I assume.
Right.
Are they calling him Jack the Ripper in this?
They're accusing Bruce of being Jack the Ripper. This is where the setup is.
But when he's locked up, is the killing still happening?
Well, it wasn't up until it was going to happen. And so she runs out to get Commissioner Gordon to tell him his identity to let him out. And they're like, where's Commissioner Gordon? Oh, he's out on the docks by the Ferris wheel because they were building like the London Eye. So that's what
doesn't sound good.
Right. So she goes by herself out to the abandoned currently, area where the London Eye is being built.
Yeah.
And but it's like the Gotham Eye. And she's there and he's like, well, what can I do for you? Oh, well, I'm surprised you're out here, but blah, 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 blah. Bruce Wayne, you need to let him out. Well, why would I do that? Because he's Batman and we need him. Oh, well, now, isn't that interesting? And then she kind of realizes, he makes a comment, and she's like, oh, crap. Bruce escapes on his own because he kind of pieces things together, goes and he confronts Commissioner Gordon's wife, and to find out, and then she goes, well, why would he do that? Well, there's something odd with him. And then you find out her face is burned, and it's always been hidden by her hair. So Commissioner Gordon's been beating his wife and torturing her. What? Yes. And then he's got a secret room, and you go down there, and then you find out he was a doctor.
Not Jack the Ripper.
He is.
That was the twist.
It was a huge twist. So you find out that he is.
I don't know if I like turning Commissioner Gordon.
You have to watch it. You will, as long as you realize it's a one shot.
Yeah,
and then he was doing bad things to his wife, and his wife's justifying, why he's doing these things. I deserved it. I deserved it. And he goes out, and you find out he's this like championship fighter from the military, and he's a precision surgeon and everything like that. God. So it all finds out.
I'm a precision surgeon. I think I'll become a police captain.
Well, you understand as it leads on his train of thought and how he got to where he was.
Well, if you're going to be a criminal, be on the inside, like Dexter.
Right, exactly.
Commissioner Gordon in Gotham by Gaslight's the original Dexter.
Yep.
And his sister's in it.
Exactly. There's always a tie-in.
Man.
And So I will say this for
Now I
those
gotta
of
say, I wanna
you, you
watch it.
have to watch it. It is so different, unique. Now the artistic style of it is very much like the Bruce Timm stuff.
Right.
The only negative I had was like the big fire and stuff. It was like digitally done.
Right.
I'll let that go because this style fit the way that they did this extremely well, particularly for that everything's in browns and grays, and for that time period, drab greens, very much like the comic.
Yeah.
So I would recommend. So I would say I would give the one shot an 8.5 by today's standards. I would have given it higher back in the one shot.
You're giving the comic an 8.5.
Right, I'm giving the comic an 8.5 for reading because I don't think it held up quite as well.
I can see 8 to 8.5. Definitely, I wouldn't go over a 9. I mean, it's a nice book and all, but to get that perfect score status.
Yep, and I'm gonna.
It's not one of mine.
I would say the animated movie. I would probably give a 9.4.
Really?
Yes.
And you did like it more. Huh?
I did. Like I said, you won't hear me say that very often, but it was incredibly well done, and the story was captivating. You were never bored with it, and how they do the Commissioner Gordon twist, so if you haven't seen it, you've spoiled it, but I think you know now.
But
we're going to spoil stuff. It's worth seeing how they did it. It's great.
I haven't seen it, and I'm actually... And I've done this with a lot of movies, now that I think about it. I'm more intrigued to see it. I don't think I was intrigued to see it as much before, because like we kind of said with Superman Red Son when we reviewed that, when I see a movie come out that is an adaptation of an existing thing I've already read, I'm just not that excited, because I'm like, I already read it.
Yeah.
But when I hear that it's that much different, like Gotham by Gaslight is, I'm really kind of excited now and jacked to where this weekend I want to rent it to watch.
Yep.
And I am glad with Red Son, same thing. I was happy I saw that because there was enough difference from the book, but it also was very true to it. So
yep.
I'm very glad that it's a good review like that. So I'm down. Dennis, you've converted me. I will be watching Gotham by Gaslight.
Woohoo! One down, millions to go.
Millions to go.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit here. I found this list I thought we'd go through, and the title of it is The 10 Best Comedy Films. Now, these are comedy films, or the way this list was put together wasn't comedy films like Dumb and Dumber and stuff like that. All these films are in the superhero genre. So this is a list that was put together on a website called CBR, comicbookresources.com, and it's going through their list of the 10 best comedic superhero movies. So I figured we'd run through it, talk about it, see if we agree, disagree, so on and so forth. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to number 10, because for some reason they decided to do the list 1 to 10, and I'd rather start at number 10 and get up to number 1. So, they've got number 10 listed as, this is a great title. I think I remember seeing this too. Superhero Movie.
Yep.
Actually, you know what? I don't know if I did see this. Is that Adam Sandberg I see? Is it?
Yeah.
That is Adam Sandberg. You know what? This is one of those movies. It's a parody. It's kind of like the Scream of superhero movies. So it's a parody of a superhero movie, going by the title. Good old Leslie Nielsen's in it. He's awesome. They're giving it the 10 spot. I haven't seen it, so I can't really rate where it should go. Have you seen it?
Yep, I saw it way back, obviously, when it first came out, and I thought it was cute and enjoyable. It's a spoof, obviously, and, I would say potentially it could fall on the list. Now that I've seen the entire list, ahead of time, I probably wouldn't have put it on my list because there's just other movies.
There's so many out there. Yeah, I got to see what else is. I did see the whole list, but I literally scrolled on the
It's
screen
a good
so
movie,
fast.
and I would probably, but I don't think it would make my top 10.
Well, it came out in 2008, so it's been out for a while, so definitely go check it out. The basic gist is The film focuses on orphaned high school student Rick Riker, who is bitten by a radioactive dragonfly, develops superpowers except for the ability to fly, and becomes a hero. I'm going to go out on a limb. Is Rick Riker Andy Samberg?
I think so at the time. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen that one.
I'll have to check that out. All right, let's run up to number 9.
The Green Hornet.
The Green Hornet. You know what? I enjoyed The Green Hornet.
I did too.
I was skeptical. I never watched the show. Did you ever watch the show?
I did.
Did you?
I did. Well, I was a Bruce Lee fan, so kind of naturally I would see anything.
I never did. I knew about it, just never watched it, never even in reruns, but I knew enough about it, and because they did a comic book through the years, they've done a few comics on the Green Hornet. And when it came out, I'm like, well, Seth Rogen. I like Seth Rogen. Christopher Waltz. Love that guy. So it had a great cast. And I thought it was pretty good, actually. Yeah. You know, I wasn't sure what to think going into it because I knew it was going to be an action comedy, and the Green Hornet TV show was not a comedy, if I remember correctly.
No, it wasn't.
And it wasn't even, like, the Green Hornet show came out at the same time the original Batman with Adam West and Burt Ward came out. But the Batman show was definitely campy on purpose.
Yep.
But Green Hornet wasn't, was it? It was.
No.
It was, yeah.
Well, it was to a point. I mean, it kind of felt like, in a lot of ways, the original Batman 66 type stuff. But part of that was the technology and the way
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Part of it was just the time it was filmed in the late 60s. And
it definitely had the feeling of that time period.
Right. But they didn't do when somebody got punched, they didn't do the big sound effect and stuff like that. They tried to play it more straight.
Right.
So I can see Green Hornet on here at number 9. I don't have an issue with it being that far down on the list.
Nope. I think it was solid. I enjoyed it.
Let's see. Oh, number 8, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I don't know the whole list, but right now I'm saying without seeing the whole list, it needs to go a little bit higher.
See, and I saw the list, and I was kind of like, all right.
You think that's accurate placement? Number 8 out of 10?
I actually enjoyed it more than I think a lot of people did when it came out. I would have placed it higher.
I think it's better than Ant-Man, the original, the first one.
Right, I do too.
Yeah.
The first one was, which didn't make the list, by the way, the original one.
Really?
The first one was more of a sleuth, It was, it's a burglar. It's, I'm going to go in and steal something. But it was so interesting and unique, and Paul Rudd is Paul Rudd, and he plays it's a perfect character cast for him. And Evangeline Lilly, love her to death, so I was like, yep, I loved it. 2, I thought was a better movie than 1, and not everybody agrees with that. Maybe that's why it fell down. I thought it was funnier, it was lighter hearted, I laughed more, I just thought it was a great overall movie.
I actually like the villain more in 2 as well. Like the first
Ghost,
one,
yes.
The first one, don't get me wrong, I love the Yellow Jacket. I'm a huge Yellow Jacket fan from the comics. This Yellow Jacket in the original Ant-Man movie really has no bearing at all to the one in the comics.
Correct.
Except for who created the technology. But besides that, it just seemed too... Like I said, I'm not bagging on the movie because I really did like Ant-Man. But it seemed a little too cookie cutter from the standpoint of, some dude at the company created his own tech that's supposed to be better than the Ant-Man tech. So
but he ripped it off.
He ripped it off. He basically stole it and just upgraded the weaponry and stuff. So of course he's the bad guy. And I don't know. You could see where it was going, whereas I think with Ant-Man and the Wasp, with the Ghost villain, it was a little more up in there.
Yeah, and again, they changed the Ghost from the comic book.
Yeah.
A lot of differences, but what they did with her was pretty interesting. You liked where it went. You kind of felt bad for her. But that him getting ready, it was just a very, very funny movie. Michael Pena, I mean, to me, God. He just kind of
steals the show.
Yeah, he did.
And both of them. Seeing Evangeline Lilly in the Wasp costume was just nice. So.
And then get to sing the original Wasp,
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. I was, the thing with Marvel is they get, obviously they get A-list actors, but they also get these actors that you just wouldn't imagine doing a quote-unquote superhero movie.
Right.
Now, and yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer played Catwoman way back in the day.
Right.
So it's not like a huge stretch. She's done it before, but she was also a lot younger and stuff. And you'd think that she'd be like, oh, I'm not doing that again.
Yep.
But nope, she comes back and,
Yep.
Michael Douglas.
Yep.
I mean, just fantastic casting. What do we got number 7?
We've got Hancock. So Will Smith is a superhero that really doesn't care about being a superhero.
He's a dick.
Yep, pretty much.
Pretty much a dick. And, number 7, see, I would have put Ant-Man and the Wasp ahead of this.
Oh, I would have too.
Yeah, big time.
Now, I love Will Smith, so it's not like you're saying it. But the writing on this, being a superhero movie, I get the gist. I really felt this movie could have been a much better movie than what it was.
I also don't know if it belongs in the straight comedy category. It's been a while since I've seen it. What this thing? It came out in 2008. I don't remember it super, super well, but
it was
I don't
supposed
think
to
of
be a
Hancock
comedy.
as a comedy, though.
It's got, to me, comedic elements to it.
It does.
But I actually, almost every movie we've already talked about, I would have said was funnier than Hancock.
That's why I can't put Hancock above Ant-Man and the Wasp, just for that alone. Even superhero movie, because superhero movie might not have been a better movie,
right?
But it was more of a comedy,
right? It was
Hancock
straight up a comedy. So yeah, I don't. Hancock wouldn't have even made my top 10.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that, and I love Will Smith.
But number 6.
Number 6 is Kick-Ass. And I'm not just saying Kick-Ass is a descriptor. That's the movie, Kick-Ass.
Yep.
By Mark Millar. It is I love that movie.
I did too. This definitely makes my list.
Oh yeah, this makes the list. It's definitely a comedy. It is basically a Batman-type story, except the kid, his parents aren't killed. He's basically kind of a nerdy dude that is just sick of it and says, screw it, I'm going to become a vigilante, and makes his own costume, has basically billy clubs for weapons, tries to teach himself how to fight, goes out there, gets his ass kicked. It's rated R, and it's rated R for violence. Huh?
For a real reason.
Oh yeah, it's rated R for the violence, and the violence is all, realistic, getting beat up type stuff. I mean, there's some gun stuff in there as well, but a lot of it's fighting. But it's rated R, I say, more for the language. I think if they took the language out, it'd probably fall PG-13.
Yep. I have no problem where Kick-Ass lands, and it's at number 6 on the list. I think that's a good call.
That's a very good call. Once again, this thing came out in 2010. There has been, there was a Kick-Ass sequel.
Yeah.
And did they make Hit Girl into a movie by herself? No. Okay, so it was just the Kick-Ass sequel.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Kick-Ass is good. There's definitely, he's not the only one. Like I said, I don't believe anybody in the movie has powers. They're all just, costume vigilantes. And even the bad guy is just, the bad guy's a spoiled rich brat, basically, that's like...
I remember enjoying it all the way through.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it is definitely worthwhile for a comedy.
Oh, yeah. And that definitely falls in with a comedy.
Now, number 5 surprises me a little bit. And not because I don't like the movie, but number 5 is...
The placement? Before we say what it is, what is the placement on the list? What surprises you?
Yeah, because
or
I don't...
the movie being on the list?
Well, I probably would have placed it farther down on the list, even though a lot of people won't even think it's a comedy.
I agree.
And so I would be up in there. I would maybe put it on the list. Just, what is it, Andy?
It's Spider-Man Homecoming.
Right.
The first reboot Spider-Man movie with, oh my God, I'm blanking on the kid's name.
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland playing Spider-Man. You've got the
Tom, if you're listening, we're very sorry.
Tom, we love you. My daughter especially. I'm not joking about that. If you could send her an Instagram, that would be awesome, Tom. Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, fantastic. Michael Keaton playing the villain, the Vulture. Yeah. Awesome.
Yes. So I look at it as it was a great movie.
It's a great movie, but I don't call it a comedy.
Right. It's got comedic elements, but then again, all of the Spider-Man movies, even
Marvel
when Toby did it. Right.
Yeah, but all Marvel, when I think Marvel movies and comedies, the first ones that come to mind are Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Deadpool.
Deadpool,
2.
right. I wasn't thinking Deadpool because when I say Marvel, I mean Marvel Studios, but you're right. So
Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2.
Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, Deadpool, those do. Spider-Man Homecoming to me is an action movie,
right,
which is more drama,
right,
and it just has comedic moments. Like, to me, a comedy is literally written where the writers are sitting there going, oh, we got to put a joke here, right, because it's a comedy. Whereas Spider-Man Homecoming is a action movie that's more drama, and the funny stuff, I mean, it's written intentionally to get a laugh, but it's more grounded.
Right.
So you laugh, but it's a grounded thing. It's almost like, oh, somebody walks and slips on a banana peel, and you get a chuckle out of that,
right,
because it is funny, because when somebody falls down, it's funny, you know, they don't get hurt, whatever, but it's not necessarily a joke with a punchline, whereas a lot, you know, comedies are written that way.
And in all honesty, I think the second Spider-Man movie was funnier.
Yeah.
You know, with you know, Mysterio. That had so many, when, you know, they're on their trip, it had so many comedic moments to it, even though that also I wouldn't consider a comedy. But if I'm going to pick one for this list, and depending on where it's in, the number 2 I would have put on this list, and it never even made the list.
But here's the thing. Once again, out of this list, the only one that I'm moving ahead of Spider-Man Homecoming is Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think Ant-Man and the Wasp could fit the number 5 spot.
Yep.
I would put, okay, so far, we've got number 5, Spider-Man Homecoming, going by this list. 6 is Kick-Ass.
7 is Hancock.
7 is Hancock.
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
8 is Ant-Man and the Wasp. 9 is Green Hornet. Yep. And 10 is superhero movie. I would easily put Ant-Man and the Wasp at number 5 before all these other movies.
Now, here's where it gets interesting, because
number 4,
Guardians of the Galaxy.
I think that fits. I think it fits around. Yeah. So Ant-Man and the Wasp or Guardians is number 4. Like, if we're in agreement that Ant-Man and the Wasp go in the number 5 spot, right?
Yep.
And now we know number 4 is Guardians of the Galaxy. Do they switch?
I would put Guardians of the Galaxy at 4.
Yeah.
Based on this. I enjoyed that movie so much more than I remember seeing it 3 times in the theater going, I can't believe this is Guardians, that this is what they turned the comic book into.
They pulled it off so well.
It was so funny. And I mean, there's no weak link in the movie.
No.
The surprising thing is now, and again, I think I'm in the minority, I actually thought number 2 was even funnier. And a lot of people did. They like number 1 better.
I don't know, Baby Groot.
Well, that's just a pure adorable.
Adorbs.
Yeah. Baby Groot.
Baby Groot. So yeah, I can go for that. That's a good one. Let's see. 3. I mean, this is really going back in the time machine. Number 3 is The Mask with Jim Carrey. Now, Jim Carrey, one of the greatest comedic performers of all time. If you don't know The Mask, it came out in 1994. So some of you listening might be like, 94? I wasn't even born yet. But it's worth watching. But number 3?
Yeah, so again, I totally disagree. When The Mask came out in its time, I thought it was just hilariously... It was great.
Groundbreaking.
It was great. That is exactly it. Cameron Diaz, right?
Oh, that was like one of her first things.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was great. Again, it is a comic book movie.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed the comics that have come out, you know, at the time and since. But when I take a look at it, and that one was obviously designed to be a comedy, a very silly comedy.
Oh, totally.
But again, I didn't think it was a great movie, but it was very fun to watch, and it was groundbreaking with its effects. I would probably move that to the bottom of the list.
Oh, it definitely wouldn't be in my top 5. It'd be above Hancock.
Yes.
I'd
probably have Hancock maybe at 10 and then that at 9.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it deserves to be on the list. You know, it was Jim Carrey in his heyday.
Yeah.
In his heyday. I mean, what was this before or after Ace Ventura?
That's a good question.
I think it was after.
I think it was after.
We're not looking it up. We're going to go after.
Yeah.
Let us know. what was first, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, or The Mask? Either way.
Because Ace Ventura, if that were a comic book movie, that would be towards the top of my list.
Oh my God, that movie was hysterical.
Yes. All right. Number two,
Dennis.
I totally agree with Deadpool 2.
Deadpool 2. It definitely sequel better than the original.
Yep, and I love the original.
Oh my God. The original Deadpool just had me in tears.
Yep.
And one is because Ryan Reynolds, my man crush, that's right, I've got a man crush, it's Ryan Reynolds, is in it. Yep. Playing Deadpool, perfect casting, just all around awesome movie. Dennis, who's your man crush? And you don't have to say me.
Okay.
Luke Skywalker.
No, I would say so.
I know.
Who?
I'm going to go with a fictional, and I don't know who the real fictional. Captain James T. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise.
That is a good guess, and he is definitely up there for a bro. I would actually go with Dirk Benedict back in the day. You're looking at me like, wow, Dirk Benedict.
Yeah.
He actually played the original Starbuck from the original Battlestar Galactica.
Right.
Because when I saw Dirk, and later on in A-Team, he played the face.
Oh, yeah, dude.
But, he was the guy when you're sitting there smoking his cigars, gambling, ladies, man, you're looking at it going, that's got to be me someday. Now, Dirk, just so you know, I turned out nothing like that. Just so you turned out. But when back in the day, I would be like, that's who I would emulate.
Well, and part of it, and you're talking Battlestar Day, right?
Battlestar Galactica.
The costume design for him,
yes,
with the brown leather jacket,
yep,
right, and the lighter khaki looking pants, and
yep,
he was awesome. Yep. He was the man.
Yeah,
so yeah,
I was a huge Richard Hatch fan and stuff, and I remember talking to him at conventions and stuff. So it's nothing against that, but Dirk Benedict was the guy. And then when he was at A-Team, I'm like, wow, again, a perfect fit for him in there. So yeah, Dirk was kind of my boy who I kind of wanted to emulate.
So Deadpool 2. It definitely. I'm fine with number 2. It was hysterical. Colossus is just off the hook funny, and they don't. And the funny thing about Colossus is, it's like we were saying, he's not written to be funny.
Right.
It's just the performance
that
the actor gives.
Way back when they were talking Deadpool, back in the Wizard, magazine day, it's, here would be a movie and who would be the star?
Right.
And when I remember Deadpool coming up in there, even way back then, I was like, Ryan Reynolds. Oh, yeah. Back from, Van Wilder days, stuff like that. I'm like, he literally, to me, is the living embodiment of what Deadpool would be. And then when he did that original trailer to say, hey, and made it, I was like, it could be. And he was made for this role.
Oh, yeah.
I am so happy, Ryan, that you're doing this. I mean, seriously, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah. That's right, Ryan. If you're ever in North Carolina, Charlotte, and you want a place to stay that's not a typical hotel, look me up, buddy. Look me up. Andy Smith Art Instagram, Andy Smith Art Facebook, Andy Smith Art Twitter. Ryan, you got my digits. I really liked the girl that played Domino as well.
Oh, yes.
She was phenomenal. It was just, once again, just her acting chops, because I've seen her in other roles.
Yep.
And just the attitude and how she carried herself in the movie.
Seriously, every person in that movie filled their comedic role to the T. Even Brad Pitt.
Which I didn't catch when I first saw it.
Oh, no way!
No, I didn't. It was too quick.
It was so quick. And then when you heard
that Brad Pitt was in it, you're like, well, I didn't catch Matt Damon the first time either.
In Thor?
No, Matt Damon was in Deadpool 2.
Oh, I thought you meant in Thor when he was reenacting and actually was Thor.
Well, you know what I'm talking about in Deadpool 2, don't you? Are you serious?
No, what are you talking about?
Matt Damon was in Deadpool 2.
Okay, hold on. Now I have to put on my way back thinking cap. Tell me.
When Josh Brolin comes from the future to the present, his table, he was the back of the truck.
Yes, the truck dudes.
I can't remember who the other truck dude was, because it was somebody else too, I thought. I don't remember off the top of my head, but we'll have to look it up for next episode.
Yeah, but it was great.
But at first, I didn't realize it was Matt Damon until the second go either. Because of the fat suit they put him in and just the
even his accent.
The mullet and everything. So Deadpool 2, definitely.
Right. I got a drum roll, and the number one is...
The number one is something I don't agree with.
Oh!
Do you agree with this?
Totally.
Do you really? I do.
Thor Ragnarok is one of my favorite movies now of all time.
It's a buddy cop movie between Thor and the Hulk, in my opinion.
Yep.
But I'd put Deadpool above it.
Okay, so my argument has always been when these two came out, again, I went and saw Thor Ragnarok 3 times, and I sat there and was like, which one do I like better? Deadpool 2 or Thor? Deadpool 2 and Thor. So the question is, since it was out in the movie theaters and since I saw them both 3 times, I went. Of course, I own them all.
Right.
Which one have I watched more often? And I have seen Thor Ragnarok more often. Yes.
See, the reason I can't place it, it is funny. Don't get me wrong. It's a funny movie. I don't think it's meant to be a straight up comedy, so that's one check against it in my book. The other check against it is, it doesn't feel like a Thor movie. Now, I know that's not germane to it being on this list of the top 10 superhero comedy type movies.
Bringing the Germans into it.
But it doesn't, I don't know. To me, I would flip this 1 and 2. I don't even know if I'd put Thor Ragnarok in the top. It'd be in the top 5, but I don't know if it'd be number 2.
I don't know. See,
I thought it was hysterical.
This is why I disagree with you. So
yeah, but you're always wrong. You like the Packers, Dennis.
Right, and we can compare my 13 championships to the Cowboys. So yeah, I think I'm right.
Since there's been Super Bowls.
Since there's been Super Bowls. Oh, okay, Mr. Ooh, we had 1 decade. Ooh.
Oh, 5 rings. Ooh. Anyhow.
But what I think, Taika Waititi, he, I think, directed this completely as a comedy. Now, it's not going to be, it's not like dumb comedy, but everything about it, even when, at the very beginning, when Thor's hanging, spinning in circles, and Sultan's like, I'm going to destroy Ragnarok, kill everything, and just hold on for a minute. Everything was a comedy out of the get-go. I thought it was brilliant. I thought, seriously, it is my favorite. And I got a lot of great Marvel movies. It is my favorite Marvel movie by a smidgen over Deadpool 2.
All right.
This from an X-Men guy. Just saying. That's how much I liked it.
This is where Dennis and Andy finally disagree. We all know Deadpool. What do you guys think? Let us know on our Facebook page, Dennis and Andy Show on Facebook. What is your number 1 comedy superhero movie? You want to give us your top 10? Knock yourself out. But if not, tell us your number 1, your favorite, or tell us, do you agree Thor Ragnarok is funnier, should be higher on the list than Deadpool 2, or vice versa? Well,
and there was a movie on there that didn't make the list, 2 of them that I thought could have been.
What?
That would be Superman 4.
No, that was a garbage movie. That doesn't even fall into it. No.
Superman Returns.
No. Okay. Okay.
Those movies were so bad that you couldn't help but laugh all the way through it.
That's not the point of this list. Superman 4 was bad. I agree. Superman Returns, I liked until the ending, and I felt bad for Brandon Routh because I thought he did a good job of trying to be Christopher Reeves.
And I agree with that.
I thought he did a great job, and I don't think it was his fault. I think the director, Bryan Singer, really wanted Christopher Reeve Jr.
Yes.
And pushed him that way and wanted him to really emulate Christopher Reeves, and I think that was just a bad choice.
I think he should have stayed on X-Men, and I think both franchises would have been better off. Probably. Just saying.
And that's how we're going to end it, guys. Thanks again for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Catch you next week.
Bye.
Until next week, grab your 3D glasses.
Get your favorite comic books, roll them up, and put them in your back pocket the way you should treat comics.
Throw your pigskin up on the mantle. This is Dennis.
This is Andy. Later friends.